Hey, gorgeous. Welcome to season 3 of the Hormone Puzzle Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Kayla Smith, CEO of the Hormone Puzzle Society, a women's health hub for fertility, hormones, and pregnancy, an integrative, holistic nutritionist, doctor of natural medicine and training, creator of the Hormone Puzzle Method, an infertility warrior, 2-time boy mom, and women's health expert. This podcast is for women struggling with infertility, painful periods, terrible PMS, or really just any symptoms of hormone imbalance that they are ready to eliminate for good. Tune in weekly as we interview amazing experts in the field of women's health, breaking down those hormone walls, nerding out on nutrition, and having way too much fun. Whether you're beginning your journey or you've been struggling for years, we're going to finally help you put those pieces of your hormone puzzle back together so that you can get pregnant and eliminate those pesky symptoms for good. Not to mention, stay pregnant, have a healthy super baby, and easy postpartum. Are you ready? This season is packed with even more expert guests, sharing groundbreaking knowledge, giving you that jolt of energy that you so desperately need, sending you lots of virtual hugs, and inspiring you to take your fertility into your own hands and make that baby. Thank you all so much for tuning in and being amazing listeners. So now let's get started on your road to transformation. On today's show, we have LJ Johnson, a women's health coach who specializes in endometriosis, PCOS, and fibroids. LJ has worked in the health, fitness, and women's hormone industry for over 20 years. Her passion for all things women's health stems from her own personal healing journey, including the diagnosis of endometriosis, which unfortunately took her 16 years. LJ has healed herself naturally of asthma, allergies, chronic sinus infections, eczema, and other autoimmune conditions. LJ's passion is to empower, motivate, and educate others so that they can have quality of life despite their symptoms or diagnosis. On today's show, we're talking all about endometriosis and fibroids and how to get pregnant even with these diagnoses. So now let's welcome LJ to our show. Hey, LJ, welcome to the show.
Yes, I'm excited to be here. Welcome.
Yes, I'm so excited to talk to you. So let's dive into things. Tell us a little bit more about you and what really inspired you to start working in women's health and with endo, with fibroids, all of it.
I know, my journey. So my journey really began with my own diagnosis of endometriosis. It took me 16 years to get diagnosed. So that's a really long time. I know for others it can be longer. I mean, it's usually between like 8 to 12 years. So it took me 16 years to get diagnosed with endometriosis. And it rocked my world, right? I'd already been working in women's health. I'd already been working in nutrition and fitness and doing all these amazing things. But when endometriosis was diagnosed for me, it rocked my world and it had me start everything all over, right? Like everything I took for granted, being able to go to the gym, being able to have energy, just like basic things. Like suddenly I was like, oh my gosh, this is why I can't have it. And what I also realized is during that 16 years, it was really 16 years of silence for me, right? Many people look at my Instagram now and they're like, oh my gosh, I would have never known. You're just the rock star instructor or you taught at a conference. And I'm like, yeah, that's when I wasn't having the flare. When I was in the flare, it was the person crawling to the bathroom, this, that, and the other. And I really did suffer in silence. So when people ask me, why do I do what I do? It's because it took so long for me to get diagnosed. And then secondly, I just remember how isolated and alone I felt. And then not to mention just the lack of information. There was no Instagram. There was no social media, there was no podcast, right? Where we're openly talking about our uterus and the challenges and the ups and the downs. It was very hush hush. And so once I kind of got set free and was like, okay, I've got some answers. I love what I do. I just started getting more knowledge, going for more training, because I realized there were a lot of people, there's just not a lot of people out there doing it.
Oh, I love that. And so today we are going to talk about endometriosis and fibroids. And so I would love to just start with, just a brief description. What is endometriosis?
Yes, yes. What is endometriosis? I know there's so many misconceptions. So endometriosis is uterine-like tissue outside of the uterus, right? And I really want to put that big quotations around the uterine-like, because if it's not uterine lining, it's not endometrium, it's not any of those things. And I know sometimes there's all these misconceptions, but it's uterine-like lining outside of the uterus, which is really, once again, these lesions they're really coming off of, okay, this is probably where we do an edit, right? Because in my brain, it's like, I'm like, what do I say? I apologize. I'm like, where do I restart? You tell me where. I'm sorry. Do you want me to start back with my definition?
Yeah, sure. That works.
I apologize. I'm sorry. I'm okay. I hope you invite me back. I'm like, my brain is working overtime over here.
No
I
worries.
do apologize. So endometriosis is uterine-like lining outside of the uterus. It is chronic systemic inflammation throughout the entire body, right? So it's not uterine lining, it's not endometrium. That's where a lot of those misconceptions come in of, if you have a hysterectomy and just take out your uterus, is it going to remove your endometriosis? The biggest thing that we have to remember about endometriosis is it's not a reproductive disease, right? So it's not reproductive. It is chronic systemic inflammation throughout your entire body.
And so how do we know that we have it?
Oh, well, the golden standard, right? So there's lots of symptoms, right? And I think that's why physicians have such a hard time diagnosing it. There are, things you can do with like MRIs and blood works, et cetera. But the golden standard for diagnosis would be a laparoscopic procedure where you actually have an excision surgeon, possibly your OB. I would say an excision surgeon and specialist go in and look. And then the excision is really the golden standard for having it removed, right? So unfortunately, as of today, what are we at? January 12th, 2022, there is no cure for endometriosis. I definitely think we got a ways to go, but the golden standard to have it removed would be the excision, and that golden standard to really just see if that's what you have, aside from all the symptomatic things, would be the laparoscopic procedure.
And is there some symptoms that we can expect to have? Pain, I'm sure, is one of them we hear a lot about, but anything else other than pain that we might be, some symptoms?
Yes. So the pain is going to be the big one, right? You could also have heavy bleeding and clotting. Lots of women will have nerve pain, sciatic pain. You can also have issues as far as your immune system, right? It's sometimes, and I know it can be very controversial. People feel like, did the autoimmune come first? Was it the endo or the autoimmune? Is it one? Is it the other? Is it both? That's neither here or there, but you could definitely have some immune system issues, right? Another thing that I've seen is sometimes people have nosebleeds, right? They may have an endometriosis lesion, up in the sinus cavity, up here. So they're going to have the nosebleeds. There can be vomiting, fainting, a lot of fatigue, right? And it's not your normal, hey, my period's coming, I'm not going to run 10 miles a day. I'm going to run, 8 miles a day. It's like, I'm not running 10 miles a day and I can barely walk and get things done. So it's definitely an extreme fatigue. When I say fatigue, let's talk about brain fog, right? Brain fog, which happens to the best of us. I may even have a bit of it today, the brain fog, right? Like you're not able to focus, and just a lot of fatigue, and just that, how else do I put it? It's definitely great fatigue, but it's chronic fatigue, right? This isn't fatigue where you can put a Starbucks behind it and just keep going. This is fatigue where you're calling into work, right? Possibly you're in a flare and, your flare has you out of commission for 5-7 days, right? There's a lot more going on with the endometriosis. And the other thing I will say, because there's so many symptoms, is everyone's symptoms are different, right? You and I could both be endo warriors. You could have possibly silent endo, have zero pain, but yet you went in and you were having fertility issues. And then they're like, hey, this is what's going on. Versus I, on the other hand, I had tons of pain, yet I had no fertility challenges. And so that is where my heart goes out to the physicians, because it is a challenge, right? Like everyone's diagnosis, we may all have endometriosis, but everyone's symptoms are so different, how your body responds. And then as those hormone levels change throughout the month, that makes a huge difference as well.
I gotcha. And we're going to talk in the second half about ways we can hopefully manage our endo and lessen the symptoms. But now we're going to switch gears. We're going to talk about fibroids. So what are fibroids? Tell us about this.
Fibroids. I know. The way I like to define it is it's just toxins and hormones wrapping themselves, but typically they're cancerous tumors that can be in or around the uterus. So it's a big deal as well. It's very interesting. A lot of my endo warriors, a lot of my patients that have endometriosis also deal with fibroids, or if they have fibroids and they're not properly managed and they're just kind of, maybe their doctor's like, hey, I think I've heard a couple times, you don't bother them, they won't bother you. So you get the diagnosis of the fibroids back in 2000 and you just kind of let them be. And then you come back 10, 15 years later and then it's progressed, right? Because that hormonal imbalance is still there. So fibroids, are a challenge. I mean, you can have lots of clotting, heavy bleeding. Usually there's going to be some distension. Like some people can actually, depending on where your fibroids are located, they can actually feel the fibroid. They can actually feel that additional pressure. Maybe they don't know exactly where it's at, but they're like, hey, LJ, like I feel something pushing on my bowels. I feel something pushing on my bladder. I know back when I was talking about the endometriosis, for me, I would always have a lot of pins and needles on, it just felt like something was dancing on my bladder, like very pins and needles, sharp pain. But with fibroids, when they describe the bladder pain, it's almost like just additional pressure. Like there's something sitting on your bladder 24/7, no matter how many times you go back and forth to the restroom, like you just can't quite empty your bladder. Or if you're dealing with some constipation, sometimes I feel like, that fibroid is kind of pressing against your digestive tract and you're not able to completely empty, or you're just chronically constipated.
And so how do we get rid of these? Is there any way other than surgery?
Well, surgery is always an option, right? It can always be a part of the healing journey. The first thing I say when people are dealing with fibroids is and I think as a society, when it comes to any type of wound wellness issue, may it be endo, PCOS, or fibroids, but especially with endo and fibroids, we need to not just focusing on putting all the good things in our body, but we need to make sure we're removing toxins from our body, right? So removing toxins as in, I know everyone laughs, but basic things like pooping 2 to 3 times a day, making sure you're getting the toxins out, right? You could be eating all the organic, this, that, and the other, and the special water and all these supplements. But if you're not allowing your body, if your body's not pushing the waste out, essentially you are re-ingesting those toxins. So that makes a huge difference. So anything to decrease the toxic load, the first thing I would be looking at is bowel health, right? I know when people think toxic load, they're like, oh my gosh, LJ told me to go get a detox. I'm going to get a detox tea. I'm going to buy a detox pack on Amazon. And I'm like, no, that's like the opposite. Like just start with the old school $3.99 bowel movements. If we could start there. And then the next thing I would say is you really want to see where your hormones are at, right? Like you can definitely guess and do a random supplements and all that. I'm more of a test and don't guess girl. I love to do the Dutch test with my patients because we need to know what's going on with your liver detoxification pathways. Is there, something clogged up? I mean, clearly something's clogged up if you're having the fibroids, but we need to know exactly what's going on. And I think what happens is when people think of fibroids, because there's so many stories out there of how I build myself naturally. And I too, I'm very confident about that. I feel very passionate about it, but you don't want to just be out there buying random supplements, taking DEM, people are like, oh, I have endo, I'll take DEM. Oh, I have fibroids, I'll drink this tea. And it's like, sometimes that's not exactly what you want to do.
For sure.
Right.
And so the big question that I get a lot, can I still get pregnant if I have endo, if I have fibroids? Can this still happen?
It can definitely still happen. I will say, I'm plugging myself. I am living proof it can happen. I had endometriosis. I started having symptoms when I was 14. I didn't really get diagnosed until my 30s, right? That's after I had not 1, but 2 children. So I had my daughter. My endo, I'll be honest, it calmed down a little bit during my pregnancy, but it didn't cure it, right? I was told if you have a baby, it'll stretch everything out. We hear that and you're like, oh, cool. So I had one. I'm like, okay, I'm still having pain. Maybe we need to do a little more stretch out. I'm like, what's going on, right? So then I had 2 and I still was having all the issues. So I think everyone's fertility journey is different with endometriosis and fibroids because sometimes there can be, scar tissue and lesions on your ovaries. There can be things going on with your fallopian tubes. A lot of mine was more on my GI and my bladder. So I did not have any fertility issues. So that is a blessing, but for everyone, it can be very, very different, especially with fibroids. The main thing I tell people when you're dealing with fibroids too, because when you're having the fibroids and endometriosis, I'm going to kind of clump those together, right? Your body is in a state of kind of emergency, right? You're in this fight or flight. Your body, your hormones are imbalanced. You're not getting all the nutrients. And so I think so many times when people come to me, and I'm sure you've seen it with your work you do as well, like everyone's like, okay, I'm 30 years old. I just got married. We want to have a baby next year. What do I need to take? What vitamin? And it's like, I like to reverse. I'm like, so let's tap in for a second. What do you need to do to hyper nourish your body? Number one. What do we need to do to detox your body to get rid of toxins? Because when you get prego, right, when you're pregnant, baby is shopping from mom's stores, right? So it's shopping from your calcium, your magnesium, all of these things, right? So if you're nutrient deficient, or for example, if you have fibroids and you're anemic and your iron's low and you're already having fatigue and you're already having all these issues, bringing the baby in there, she's then, she or he is going to be shopping. That's going to increase your symptoms, right? You're going to be even the more fatigued and lightheaded and have all of these issues. So I think the thing that I like to think about is before you start, thinking about the fertility journey, what can you do to get your hormones balanced, right? You can do conventional testing with blood work. There's certain times to do it. I recommend the Dutch test. I do that a lot. I don't know if you have another recommendation of something that you like to use, but definitely checking the hormones, seeing where you're at, making sure the hormones are balanced. What changes do you need to make? And then making sure those detox pathways are open. Like I said, so many times we focused on eat this, drink this. And we're like, okay, we're doing all those things, but then you're constipated, right? You're doing all those things, but you're not moving your body. Your lymphatic system is clogged. You don't have good circulation. When you're dealing with fibroids, sometimes you can have a lot of edema, on that lower body. So then it's like when your cycle's coming, you're all congested. And it's like, is that the ideal condition you want your body in when you're moving into the fertility journey?
For sure. And we're big fans over here of test, don't guess. So we also run a full hormone profile, with all the, metabolic pathways and all of that. So super important for sure.
It is, right?
I love it. Well, we're going to take a short break. We're going to hear a word from our sponsors. We're going to come back in and talk practical tips. How do we start to lessen these symptoms of endo and fibroids? So we'll be right back. Hey y'all, it's Coach Kayla here. I hope you are loving this episode as much as I am. We will be back in just a minute, but first, a word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by the Hormone P.U.Z.Z.L.E Society, a women's health hub for fertility, hormones, and the business of coaching. Whether you're struggling to get pregnant with pesky hormone symptoms, or you're working to build a career in the fertility and women's health space, we have you covered. Visit our website at www.coachkayla.com to learn more on how we can help you. Text the keyword fertility to 615-257-8855 for your free fertility meal plan. Hey, LJ, welcome back.
Yes, I'm here. I'm back.
Yay. So let's talk top tips. What are your 5 best tips for managing these symptoms and even helping us to kind of manage these conditions so we can live with them?
My first tip would be to attack, whatever you want to call it, the inflammation, decreasing your inflammation. That is so huge. I know it's hard when you're in a flare. And if you're in a flare right now, you're like, LJ, that is not what I want to hear. I'm like, honey, stick with me for a second. If you decrease the inflammation is really what's driving the pain, right? It's kind of like when you have a surgery or whatever. It's not really the surgery. Yes, the surgery corrected or did whatever, but it's the inflammation, how your body is responding. Anything you can do to decrease inflammation, right? Now, for some, that's going to be eliminating gluten, dairy, wheat. I was one of those. I had to take those out, right? As much as I loved my, BLT and my this, that, and the other, it wasn't really serving my healing journey. I could eat the Cheez-Its when I was stressed out. I could eat the peanut butter sandwich when I was stressed out. That was like my go-to. But then I knew the peanuts, I was going to be wheezing the next day and I was going to be flaring up, right? So it's finding what you need to bring in. Because I think once again, so many times we're like, bring this in, but what do you need to remove? So I'd say the easiest way to start would be the nutrition. What are 2 or 3 things that you can bring in that's going to decrease inflammation? What are 2 or 3 things that you can take out, right? The wheat, the gluten, the dairy, right? What can you bring in? You can bring in some ginger. You can bring in something as simple as, okay, maybe you don't want to take another supplement or maybe ginger doesn't work for you. Can you do Epsom salt baths, right? Which helps decrease the inflammation. Can you do a magnesium salt bath? put some essential oils in there, right? Like there's things that you can do to decrease the inflammation, increase your circulation. So that would be my first thing, right? Then I'm going to go to movement, which I know, once again, depending on where you're at in your healing journey, the movement can look different, right? Today, I've had a long day. I did like a 35-minute workout, and that's great. Now, I remember the days where I was cramping up, right? And I was having butt lightning and all these not so fun things, right? Going to the gym for 35 minutes, honey, that was a dream. Like it was not about to happen. But what I did do was lay in the bed and do some stretching, right? Because even if I am cramped up for 6 or 7 days, just laying there, not stretching, doing no movement did not help me. So, I mean, it can be as much as running 10 miles for my runners and people that love the cardio. And it can be as simple as just doing yoga, doing stretching. I do have a video that is a pelvic release video that a pelvic physical therapist did. And it's like, even that little routine for 8 to 10 minutes in the morning can make a huge difference. And so I know when people think fitness, because I'm also a personal trainer and group fitness instructor, they're like, oh my gosh, she's going to tell me to take 60 minutes of Zumba. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the thing is you have to find what works for you on a daily basis. What can you do a couple days, right? If you do that killer Zumba class or do a bunch of plyometrics and bounce your uterus around and it's already tender and inflamed, is that going to stop you from working out for the next 6 weeks? Or is that something you can keep up, right? So it's really giving yourself the grace. And also, I will say this, before I probably wouldn't have, but now I'm like, hey, sometimes you're not going to be able to get that workout in. Sometimes it's going to be a stretch. Maybe you haven't did any workouts and you're like, okay, LJ, I'm buying this. I'd like to start working out. Then start with walking, right? Don't go back to your favorite workout from 10 years ago, because that's going to it's not going to set you up for success, right? Start with walking, walking your dog, walking with your neighbor for 20 minutes, like whatever you can do to get your body moving. And as you feel stronger, as you decrease more of the inflammation, then you can ramp it up, right? Definitely when you're dealing with fibroids, a lot of women have the distension. So in their mind, they're like, well, I got to be doing crunches. I got to be on the ab 5000, the ab rocker, the ab this. This is the deal. Once again, if you decrease the inflammation, strengthen your core. Also remember, if you're having a lot of back pain, that core, all of that works together, right? When you're working out, you need to be sucking that belly button to the spine, right? And it's not just to look thin, it's really to support that back and support that core. So I would start with the nutrition, I'd start with the fitness, and then what can you do to detox your body, right? Once again, detoxification, not teas, pills, potions, and lotions. I know that's the first thing we think. Detoxification could be jumping on a rebounder. Detoxification could be dry brushing, right? Before I hopped on this podcast, I got in my infrared sauna and did dry brushing. Like that was my detoxification. It could be something as simple as tongue scraping, right? Like I'm talking baby steps. Sometimes we're thinking these grandiose plans, yes, endometriosis is a big deal. Yes, fibroids is a big deal, but little things like scraping your tongue is also a big deal for detoxification. Little things like sweating for 15, 20 minutes in a bath or doing some type of movement or stretching, that's also a very big deal. I mean, I'm going to step out on a limb and say that's probably more important than taking all these supplements and all these other little things that we do. Just once again, working with our free 99, the stuff we have inside of us, like what we can do. Those would be my biggest things, right? The nutrition, the fitness, the detoxification. Number 4, have a team. Realize, especially with endometriosis, come on, endo warriors. I know sometimes we're like, I just got my OB, I just got this. It's okay to have a nutritionist, a dietitian, a physical therapist, a physiatrist, maybe a therapist, possibly your pastor for additional support, like whatever you need. Like it is okay to have a multidisciplinary team. And I think that's where a lot of people drop the ball. Their doctor tells them to go to PT for a few weeks, they do it, and then they're like, now what? But it's like, it's okay to check in. I work really closely with a pelvic floor physical therapist and other people that are like, you should be going to pelvic physical therapy once a year, right? I know my girl Kim is always saying that, like that is really important. So be okay with having a team, right? Don't feel like a failure because you've got to add in pain management. Don't feel like a failure because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm having more challenges with this. I need to bring someone in, because remember, it's not a reproductive disease. It truly affects every cell of your body, right? So there are going to be times that you may have joint pain and you may need to bring in someone different for that. And then I would say my final tip is to just stay consistent, right? I joke about it and I know people kind of get annoyed sometimes, but here's the deal. When you're in an endo flare, it's consistent, right? Has your flare ever called you up and been like, hey, I know you want to have an amazing weekend with your family. We're going to take the weekend off. No. When those players show up, they are consistent, they are powerful, they stop you in your tracks, right? So on the other hand, are you being consistent and powerful? I just gave myself chills, but this is a big one, right? Are you being consistent with what you're doing, right? Are you being consistent with your nutrition? Are you asking for help? Also, I'm going to throw in another tip number 6, and I swear I'm going to stop here. My biggest thing is realize that with that multidisciplinary team, you're doing the nutrition, the fitness, you're like, okay, I'm buying it, I'm detoxing. Realize that it is okay to say no. Saying no to others is saying yes to yourself. And as a chronic illness warrior, as a chronic pain warrior, endo warrior, fibroid warrior, whatever label you're giving yourself, right? Invisible illness, there's so many out there. You have to realize that when you're saying yes to everyone else, you're saying no to yourself. And sometimes saying yes to this party or yes to this project or yes to whatever is that time that you're saying no to yourself, but that 15 or 20 minutes is the stretching that you need to do, that trigger point release you need to do to loosen up those hips so that you're not in pain all night. You know, it may be that 20-minute walk that you need to kind of get your circulation going, right? I mean, hopefully you can still squeeze in your tongue scraping and dry brushing, but just realize that as this is a chronic illness, it's something you're managing daily. It is okay, right? I repeat, it is okay to say no to others so that you can say yes to yourself.
I love that. And I loved all of those tips. Amazing. Just a couple things. So I love my infrared sauna. I'm so glad you said that. You're like the third guest I've had that has said they have an infrared sauna. That thing is like a game changer. Oh my gosh.
Daily. I love it.
Yep. I sit in mine daily. And I love that you dry brush in there. That's like 2 birds with 1 stone kind of thing.
It is. This girl over here, we got a lot of estrogen dominance. We're just brushing away and we're just balancing all out.
I love it. And I love too that you said about creating your team. I find so many times my clients will come to me or my potential clients and say, well, like I already have an OBGYN. I already have my endocrinologist. And I'm like, well, that's great. You need those people, but they're not going to talk to you about nutrition. They're not going to work on fitness. They're not going to work on mindset. None of the things that coaches like you and I will work on. You need people like us as well. You need a therapist. You need a physical therapist. All of this. You need this team. And it's okay to have multiple people on that team to help you to your overall goal of getting pregnant and living symptom free. So love that you said that.
The team is essential. I don't know where I would be without, especially just with all the health issues I have and the endometriosis, without a team. I mean, there would have been no way for me to get where I am today. So it's important. I know it can be overwhelming, especially when you're not feeling well and you're like, just the daunting thought of hiring another physician and going in and telling your story and all of that. But trust me, I mean, you got virtual medicine. Things are a little bit easier that way, but finding the right team can be really, really crucial. And sometimes I love how you said you already have, an OB. Sometimes you need a fresh set of eyes on your situation. Mm-hmm. So just because, that OB, delivered, all your siblings and it's, your mom's doctor, your grandmother and all that, it may not be the best fit if you're dealing with endometriosis or fibroids.
For sure. I love it. So tell people where we can find you. Where can we learn more about working with you?
Where am I? Mostly on Clubhouse. If you're a Clubhouse after, I'm on Clubhouse under LJ Johnson. I do lots of amazing rooms on there in my club, The Healing Experience. I am also on Instagram. I'm sure the handles and all that fun stuff will be included, LJS_powerhouse. And then my website is ljspowerhouse.org. I do have a free Facebook community as well. Maybe we'll add that link in. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of all over, but those are the best places. Definitely I would check out my Instagram account, especially if you just want to peruse and get a lot of free information and free takeaways. IG is probably where you want to hang out a little bit.
I love it. Well, LJ, it's so fun getting to know you and having you on the show. So thank you for being here. And I would love to hear maybe a final thought, a piece of advice you want to leave us with.
Oh, final thought. I would say, I think my final thing would be is my goal truly is to motivate, empower, and educate anyone with a uterus that you can have an amazing life despite your diagnosis. Mm-hmm. And so if you're one of those people and you're like, okay, LJ, I'm kind of buying it. You're a little hyper for me, whatever. I'm like, it's fine. Just grasp onto that. And then when you're ready, reach out to myself or anyone else, because you can have quality of life, but you also have to realize that you have to be ready to put that work in. Mm-hmm. But I'm just here to remind you that it can happen. I'm a living proof. I have lots of patients that are having a lot of success, but you just kind of have to get tired of being sick of tired and then be like, okay, let me build my team. Let me get going. So that would be my final share.
Oh, I love it. Oh, amazing. Well, thanks again for being here. It's so fun to talk to you.
Yes, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And thank you, ladies, for listening to the Hormone Puzzle Podcast. Until next time, bye. Hey, hang on just 1 second before you go. I want to make sure that you are aware of all of the amazing free resources that I have for you on my website at CoachKayla.com. From a fertility meal plan, a cycle syncing quick start guide, a holistic healing cookbook, as well as master classes, blog posts by me and some amazing experts in the fields of fertility, hormones, and nutrition. So many wonderful resources that will help you on your journey. And I wish there had been something like this when I was going through my 2 years of infertility, but there just wasn't. And so that's why I decided to create all of this for you. So make sure that you go and check it out and you take advantage of this plethora of support that I have provided for you. And spoiler alert, these were some of the same tricks and the same foods that I used to get myself pregnant, not once, but twice, even after my doctors said that I couldn't. So I know that these things work. Make sure you take advantage of that. And I cannot wait for you to be my next success story. So thanks, love. See you soon. Thanks for tuning in today to the Hormone Puzzle Podcast. Check out the show notes for today's episode at CoachKayla.com. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and leave a review. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you next week.